And we certainly don't want to be seen strengthening those groups, but that is probably a consequence. And then there is just the region. Already the U.S. is now asking unessential personnel from Lebanon to leave that country. There's talks about the Shiite militias in Iraq hitting the U.S. embassy. Of course, there's talks about Israel being attacked and then the U.S. going in to support Israel. This is very, very complicated region. And I think the caller is reflecting how you never know with the Tomahawk missile what you are going to target and what the consequences of that are going to be.
Joe is on our Republican line from West Virginia.
Yes.
You're on. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, because of the way that he's gone about this, I mean, for 2 years, people have been talking about how horrible Assad was, and he did it so abruptly and so poorly. And I just wonder sometimes, is it a cover for him trying to shove in Obamacare, which starts next month, to distract? And also, he never goes to Congress for anything. He mandates anything that he wants to mandate. He goes around some of the things that have been passed. I heard this one woman saying that he just this person that they defunded, he just put them in a different name position, doing exactly the same thing, and paid them. So I just wonder if it's just a complete distraction, because I can't believe that he could seriously think about taking the chance of getting us involved in a war.
I don't think it's a purposeful distraction, but in fact it is a distraction from so many key domestic issues that we should be focusing on. I think it's also a distraction from promoting peace efforts. We look at when John Kerry came in, and immediately he said he was going to be tackling the issue of Israel-Palestine and trying to get some kind of peace process going again. All that has been shoved aside. So whether it's domestic issues or other important international issues, these have all been overshadowed by this pending attack on Syria.
Jack Hutton from Twitter says this: Medea Benjamin, that the consequence of action or inaction cuts both ways. How do we immediately stop the use of chemical weapons?
I think this is an issue that we have to work with the international community. First of all, the international community says, wait for the report from the weapons inspectors. There's also been people who've been calling for another round of weapons inspectors, not only to determine what was used, but to determine who used it. The United States should also reveal its internal intercepts that show this is coming from the Assad regime. People around the world want more information. Once that information is collected, then let's take that to the Security Council. Let's show that to the Russians and the Chinese. Let's show that to the International Criminal Court. Let's take that to the world community and say, let's do an arms embargo. But I think what's really the most important thing is to focus on how are we going to lessen the number of deaths, because if it's over 100,000 deaths, for the people who are dying, the most important thing is they need a ceasefire and they need a political solution.
So somebody asked you about your tactics. Which of Code Pink's tactics do you think is the most effective in gaining the positive perception and support of the public?
I think the most important tactics is the one the public doesn't see, which is when we get our over about 200,000 members or supporters around the country to be flooding the phone lines of their congresspeople and to be going into meetings and to going into town halls and to be confronting directly their elected officials with our opposition to this invasion. That might not be as flashy as when you see us with red hands behind John Kerry, but that is really the essential work that has to be done by the grassroots community.
So we have a little bit of your group in action as far as tactics. Let's show a little bit with sound, and then we'll continue.
War to have another war. We need to have health care, education in our country. Gary, no more war in Syria.
So when you do that, what's the point? What kind of results does it get? Does it ultimately make a difference?
You know, I think right now we're seeing an example of where there's overwhelming opposition out in the hinterland, and yet in the halls of Congress, you're not feeling that. What you're feeling is the pressure that comes from the political machine here, and that's the Democrat and Republican leadership who are both pushing for this war. And so we feel that at times like this, there has to be the voice of the people that is heard. These are public hearings, and I've always said, Pedro, public hearings should have a time when the public gets to say something. Let us stand online for hours and hours to get our 60 seconds in, or 30 seconds, but give us a little bit of time. And since the public doesn't have that, sometimes we feel compelled to shout it out.
We are seeing of you with the hands up behind Secretary of State Kerry. Sometimes your actions are more vocal. How do you decide what tactic you'll use?
Well, the day before, I was in the Senate, and I had a vocal tactic and got taken to jail and arrested and charged with disorderly conduct. And so if I came back in the next day, I would not be allowed, I would be staying in jail. And we were told by the police that we would be arrested even before the gavel goes down, which means before the hearing even starts. If we said anything, we would be arrested, which is not right, Pedro. Before the gavel goes down, the people should have their say. And after the gavel goes down, the people should have their say. But since we had been told that, we decided to be silent.
Do they, when you walk through the door, do they know what's going to happen, or can they identify you and they pretty much know what's going to happen?
Well, we're not trying to hide ourselves, Pedro. We're usually wearing a lot of pink, and they know us. And in fact, I must say we have a very nice relationship with the Capitol Police. They know us over these years. They know that we're very peaceful people. And they appreciate the passion that we have. And on this one, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, so I won't say names, but I must tell you, we got a lot of thumbs up from the police who said they are really unhappy about this, and they are glad that we're speaking up.
How many times have you been arrested?
Oh, I've been arrested a couple of dozen times, not necessarily in Congress, but in different places. I mean, I'm 60 years old now. I've been doing protests for many, many years around all kinds of issues. And I think this is a tradition in the United States that goes way back about using civil disobedience against laws that we think are unjust.
It says here in 2012 you were part of a human rights delegation of Bahrain, and you were tear gassed, arrested, and deported.
Well, yes, Bahrain is a good example of where there is a grassroots movement against a very undemocratic government that is being supported by the United States. And we went in as human rights observers and couldn't believe the kind of oppression that we saw there, with U.S. tear gas being aimed, with canisters being aimed directly at people. Those things can kill you. We almost got shot with those. And yes, we were deported, but I think it's an example where the U.S. is on the wrong side and making a lot of people in the Muslim world unhappy because the U.S. is sending weapons to repressive governments like the government of Bahrain.
Medea Benjamin with Code Pink. This is Paul from Massachusetts Independent Line. Good morning.
Good morning. I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Those who think that we can send some missiles over and weaken Assad have another thing coming, because the people that are going to come in to replace, cause those chemical weapons to go into the hands of people that we would never, ever want to support. So I don't know who they think that we're going to help over there. The second thing is, during the Iraq War, we begged Israel to back off when missiles were flying into Israel left and right. Israel is not going to back off this time. Benjamin Netanyahu is not the best friend of Obama. And no matter what he says, once missiles start flying into Israel, Israel's going to unleash its entire military against not only Syria, but also Iran, which is going to open up a whole new problem for the United States. So when they say no boots on the ground, not right now, but they'll be coming.
I think your callers are very sophisticated and have over the years gotten an understanding of how complicated this region is. And the caller's first comment about if indeed Assad was overthrown, who would take over, is a very, very scary thought, given that the fiercest fighters right now are the ones that are related in some way to Al-Qaeda. And I think the caller is also correct about Israel. Israel is now in favor of the U.S. intervention. The Israeli supported groups in the United States, or the groups that support the Israeli government in the United States, I should say, like AIPAC, have now come out in favor of this, and they are sending people to Capitol Hill this year to call this week to call for the Congress to vote in favor of an attack on Syria. I think this is a bad move because I think this is very bad for Israel. But your caller is right. This could unleash a horrendous regional conflict that could lead us into something like another world war.
Monique is from Washington, D.C. on our Democrats line. Hello.
Hello, hi. What's going on in the Middle East has always been there. I think personally, just because we have a black man in office, everything that he do, say, and everything that Congress and the Senate does and say is going to be minimized and scrutinized and everything. And Syria has always, those Middle East countries has always had conflict with each other. It's just that over the years, everything has boiled up. And I just constantly keep hearing people say, President Obama this, President Obama this. No, you just can't put it on him. Yes, he wants to help those people who have been affected chemically and who are dying over there. We are the United States of America. That's what we do. We are the powerhouse. We help those who cannot help themselves. We help those who cannot help themselves.
Caller, thank you.
Well, I think there is some validity to what the caller said about certainly some within the Republican Party that want to use this as a way to attack President Obama. But I think for the most part, that's not what this is about. And in fact, if you look at the polls, the majority of African Americans are not supporting the president on this one. And so I think it's important to separate out people's support for the president in general, and certainly their respect for the office of the presidency from this particular policy.
The president made statements about his role in the world, especially his role in ending wars. I want you to listen to it and react to it. Go ahead.
I was elected to end wars, not start them. I've spent the last 4.5 years doing everything I can to reduce our reliance on military power as a means of meeting our international obligations and protecting the American people. But what I also know is that there are times where we have to make hard choices if we're going to stand up for the things that we care about. And I believe that this is one of those times.
Medea Benjamin.
The president was elected to represent the American people, and I would be very proud of him now if he listened to the overwhelming sentiment of the American people and backed down on this one. There are many ways to back down on a positive fashion, which is to say what we recognize is that the world community now is paying attention to this, and what we're going to do is force the different players from Iran, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, sit down together, negotiate how we're going to stop weapons sales to Syria, how we're going to push for a ceasefire, and how we're going to push for a political settlement. That would be something that would make me proud and would make me feel my president was really listening to the American people, which is his job.
There's pictures in the Financial Times today about John Kerry, the Vietnam veteran, testifying against Vietnam. John Kerry, now the Secretary of State, basically being the president's point man on Syria policy.
I am extremely disappointed with the role that John Kerry is playing. To see him at these hearings has been quite astounding. It's almost as if he's taken over the role of the Secretary of Defense. He's answering questions about military tactics. He is supposed to be the highest diplomat in the United States. He is supposed to be going around the world looking for creative solutions that are diplomatic solutions. And I wish we had a little bit more of that 27-year-old John Kerry in him these days, if he went back to his roots, perhaps, because I think what he's doing now is very bad for his own reputation and is bad for this government.
And you were one of the ones with holding up hands behind Secretary Kerry as he was testifying?
Yes, in fact, my arms got very tired for hours of holding up our hands. But, we are very passionate about this, and we really think that John Kerry is wrong on this one. He doesn't sound convincing to the majority of Americans. You even see in those hearings, he doesn't sound convincing to the majority of people in Congress, which is why this is not looking good for John Kerry or even for President Obama.